Hi, I'm Dave Brown, and I have some big news for you. AMI is doing its first ever virtual online event. It's called AMI Connect, and it's taking place Thursday, June the 3rd. It's your chance to connect with AMI shows like Kelly and Company, Employable Me, AMI This Week, and even Now with Dave Brown. You can win prizes, ask questions. It's going to be a whole lot of fun. How do you register? Well, visit amiconnect.vfairs.com, amiconnect.vfairs.com.
This is an AMI podcast.
I'm Kelly McDonald.
I'm Ramya Muthan, and you're about to embark on the complete Kelly and Company podcast experience.
It's full octane Kelly and Ramya with all the fixins.
Live from the Accessible Media Studios, this is Kelly and Company. Entertainment, lifestyle, and great conversation. It's AMI Audio's on-air community, and everyone's invited. And now, the big man himself, Kelly McDonald.
Welcome to the Monday edition of the program, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, you everywhere, wherever you are, appreciate your time. 2 p.m. Eastern time. We're here Monday through Friday for the program. If you're new to us, thanks a lot for joining in. And thanks to any of your conversations that we've had recently out there on Twitter with you at AMI Kelly Mac. Ramya over here, my co-host, is at All Rams with a Z. And Ramya, settle on back. You ready to go? Another week, another dollar?
I'm ready to go.
Dollars.
Another week, another dollar.
Yeah. It's as usual a full lineup of stuff today. Monday being our really kind of I don't want to say unique. It's what we've sort of noted as a bit of a heavier day. A little more news, a little more of the hard-hitting topics on Mondays, but the show itself comes out with a really, really nice variety of programming. Not to mention, Ramya, what a thing to coast along listening to when you have some of the great weather that's been sweeping across the country.
Oh, so good. Did you get a lot of outdoor time yesterday and Saturday? It was like 2 days in a row where I was going to sleep, keeping my fingers crossed that the next day will be nice and sunny again.
I did a lot of reading outside yesterday, and it was absolutely wonderful. Sometimes, I worry about the noise, the traffic gets too distracting or people talking and my big ears start, what are they talking about? And really somebody should just yell up, none of your business. But the point is, I find I tune in, but boy, it was a really nice day yesterday to sit back and read, and got a good dent into our book of the month, which Ramya will tell you a little bit about in just a few moments. So did you get the walking in with the little, the boss of the house?
Yes, Mr. Glizzy did demand walks over and over again, and that's okay. I was ready to oblige. Got lots of walking in, Kels, and lately I've been really utilizing maps, like Apple Maps on my phone, to just say, where am I? Kind of take twists and turns across different neighborhoods and different residential streets and find out where I am and end up on another side of the block. It's nice. It's
fun when you have that security. It's fun when I really, quite a while ago, realized how great Maps was that way, that, for the pedestrians, for walking. Really good. Even for us, where you're not just getting a screen with a map that a blind person can't, well, what the heck is this? Now those instructions are tremendous for us too, for the walking. Folks, let's tell you what's coming up on today's edition of Kelly and Company. We'll kick things off in a little while with Brock Richardson of the Neutral Zone. He'll be here with our weekly sports update.
Also, we're joined by Christopher Vallee, our AMI reporter in Ottawa, and we're talking about the AMI original documentary today. It's called Is It Time for Online?
An event that we've had the opportunity to take in once or twice while I've been at AMI for sure. The Real Abilities Film Festival Toronto is back for its 6th annual. It takes place online from the 18th to the 30th. We're going to learn more with the festival coordinator, Linda Larossi, a little later on in the program. Please stick around for that conversation with her during hour 2. A new study from the World Health Organization reveals that work may be killing us.
It's the first global study of its kind, and it showed long working hours are killing hundreds of thousands of people a year. According to the WHO, 745,000 people died in 2016 from stroke and heart disease due to long hours. The report also found that people living in Southeast Asia and the Western Pacific region were the most affected. Inez de la Cuetara, ABC News, at the Foreign Desk.
So we've always said, stress, what's it do to you? Oh, maybe it just gives you an ulcer, hurts your stomach. And I say just. Anyone who's had an ulcer is not saying just when it comes to it. But when we hear stroke, heart attack, all these other things, that anything weighing on you long enough Not to mention the extra hours people feel they have to put in a normal time, ladies and gentlemen. Again, going back to this is stuff that's been data that's been gathered. But in normal times, when you feel you have to do that extra push, do more work, and stress over meetings, stress over being somewhere, so many different things, and we stop and say, well, really, does that really take its toll on your heart? Does it really push up the blood pressure? Does it cause clots or whatever might create strokes and things like that, Rum? So I want to say, we probably didn't need a study like this to know this, but I think you need the definite evidence to show, because we've got to do something about these kinds of things. We're always saying, people are always pushing too hard. You don't feel you're successful unless you're overdoing it.
Well, certainly that scare is there now, right? Like it was always there. We always kind of have things at the back of our mind. We talk about it. But when you see it as a global study and the first of its kind, you're starting to ask follow-up questions. You're asking, what kind of work? Why is it certain parts of the world? Are we talking work hours or the type of things that are happening in those hours? What does overtime look like here versus there? It's really... It does spin into a lot of different follow-up and trying to figure out more details. So I personally have always been the kind of person to say, yes, work-life balance is absolutely necessary. And it's not something that when you're 50 and 60, you decide, okay, yeah, I'll change my habits and have to do this or that differently now because I'm experiencing some health issues. It's really something that you learn when you're young.
And often people can't make the change regardless. They have to. There's a reason they're still working and not early retirement. The situation isn't there. People through putting kids through college, whatever it might be. So it gets really tough. And there are no, what I'd like to see in a study like this too is countries, places around the world where maybe their ethics a bit different. Maybe we can see who's doing it right, who isn't. Ron, we've got a short bit of time here. We better bring up our book of the month and let people know what it is and what we want them to read so we can talk about it next week.
Absolutely. The book of the month is called Lockdown Abbey, and it's LOCH space down Abbey. It's by Beth Cowan Erskine, released in 2021. And this is recommended to us by Shivani Meal, and she's going to discuss it with us on May 25th. That's next Tuesday. It's the 1930s, and a mysterious illness is spreading over Scotland, but the noble and ancient family of Inverculin, residents of Lockdown Abbey, are much more concerned with the dwindling toilet paper supplies and who's going to look after the children now that Nanny has regretfully and most inconveniently departed this life. Then Lord Inverculin, Earl and head of the family, is found dead in mysterious circumstances. The inspector declares it an accident, but Mrs. McBain, the head housekeeper, isn't so convinced. So no one's allowed in or out because of this illness. So and the residents of the house are both upstairs and downstairs are the only suspects. And with the Earl's own family too busy doing what can only be described as nothing, she decides that she's going to do some digging between chores, and she's going to uncover a lot, Kels. There's a lot of mystery going on here that we're going to find out more about.
Yeah, definitely. And a great book. It's available. We'll talk about it next Tuesday on the program. Australia's oldest ever man is sharing his secrets for a long life, folks.
Dexter Kruger is a retired cattle rancher and lives in the Pinaroo Aged Care Centre in Queensland.
He's probably one of the sharpest residents here. His memory is amazing for an 111-year-old.
Melanie Calvert works at the centre. Dexter Kruger told Australian Broadcasting a weekly poultry delicacy has contributed to his longevity.
Chicken brains. You know, chickens have a head, and in there's some brains. And they are delicious little things. There's only one little bite.
Kruger is writing his autobiography.
I've written 300 stories, and they were all packed in my mind, gathered over 100 years.
The oldest ever woman in Australia lived until she was 114. I'm Ed Donahue.
All right, Ed, Rumya's licking her lips for those chicken brines. Oh, yes. We're going to take a break, ladies and gentlemen. Coming up next, what are some reasons to explore audio interfaces? Michael Babcock, he's going to walk through some of his experiences with us trying it out. We'll be right back. Probably ought to give you some direction here, ladies and gentlemen, as we return to the program. It's Kelly and Company. Maybe you want to recommend a book for our book club. 1-866-509-4545 is the number to do it. If you could, give us the reason why you may want us to use that book or think it's a good idea. The interest. Maybe you don't love it that much and you just want someone else sucked into reading it and you want to suggest it. 1-866-509-4545 and mention it's for Kelly and Company, and it's okay to use your message on air. Or you just might want to drop any message to us letting us know your thoughts, comments, or queries. Feedback at AMI.ca if you want to send us an email. And on Twitter, you can find AMI Audio at AMI Audio. Kelly McDonald, host of the program, with Ramya Muthan, my co-host.
And it's time for our Monday Tech Talk with Michael Babcock.
It's time for Talking Tech with Michael, bringing you a shot of technology news to get your week going with sprinkles of assistive technology.
Mike, I was telling these guys during the break that I had my first on-air sneeze today. No one was here to witness it because I muted myself. But
and technically, it wouldn't have been on air because you muted yourself.
Yeah.
If you hadn't, that's
it was
an on-air
during
sneeze.
an on-air time. Like, believe it or not,
That's
the first
a little
time.
creepy because I was just sneezing right before you guys brought me on.
What? And I was wondering if I should even share this. So there you go. High five.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Virtual high five to you.
Thank you. Thank you.
With a pair of nose tickles, ladies and gentlemen.
Mm-hmm. I just sniff over here on the side while I mute myself.
They come on fast. You're lucky you had a chance to get to your mute.
I know, honestly. It's these voiceover hotspots, I'm telling you. So let's talk about today, this tool that you were kind of teasing for us last week when we had you on, Michael, and you acquired this about a month ago. What do you want to point out? It's kind of a caveat before we get started.
As a caveat before we get started, I am not an audio expert. So I am stumbling my way through this experiment because I wanted to bring better sounding audio to other people. So I just want to share that I might get some terminology wrong. I might misexplain something, but this is what I have learned since I acquired this board back the last week of March.
All right.
Yeah, that's
sounds
awesome.
Good.
Yeah, and I understand totally when you say that too, right? Because you think, oh, okay, I want to make sure you guys understand this, and this is the way it is. So this tool was required about a month ago, and that's really kind of cool. But you've got a decent sounding microphone already. What's the main reason that made you say, hey, look, I'm going to look into another interface?
What's that saying? Boys and their toys or something?
Ah, good. No. True. Honesty. Just in other words, Mike, because I can.
Yeah. Mallory said, hey, what do you want to get for your podcast or for your AMI presentations? And I said, an audio interface would be great, or a mixer would be great. Mm-hmm. And she's like, so go find one. And then I went down that path. As Matt knows, I had emailed several times to ask him for some questions, and it just turned out to be a lot of research and a lot of playing around. And the other reason is I want to bring audio in from Android to do tutorials, for example, or bring audio in from iOS to do tutorials or different sources. And that's why I said, I need to pull the trigger and pick something up that's going to be big enough that I can be able to find my way around it and get all the sources in, but not be too overwhelming that I'm going to just throw this thing out the second story window.
Right. And when you say that, bring things in for tutorials so that people here listening can hear that audio nice and clean and clear.
Yes, because there is, in my opinion, and now don't get me wrong, because sometimes you have to do this, but in my opinion, if you want to show an audio tutorial of how to do something, don't do what I did the last time I did an Android segment and hold the phone up to the microphone.
Got it. Yeah. We don't remember that. So
No. Not at all.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, okay, let's start at the beginning then for getting to know our audio interface. What exactly is an audio interface and how does it differ from a mixer?
So an audio interface is what brings your analog sound, your sounds either from your phone or from your voice or from musical instruments into your computer and digitizes that. And the best way that I have found to explain the difference is a mixer takes those analog signals from multiple different microphones or from multiple different sources, brings them all together and can send it out into an analog signal, into speakers or an overhead overhead audio system, whereas an interface will take all of those signals and send them back into your computer, or this board apparently will let me connect it directly to Android devices or iOS. So that's the biggest difference.
A lot of people do podcasts that way, basically from their phone, and that's what they're looking for, that kind of access. So which interface did you end up acquiring?
I ended up with the analog mixer / digital interface called the Soundcraft Signature 12 MTK. And that MTK is very important because that stands for multi-track, which means out of the resources that I have, I can send audio or receive audio from each of those individual, well, Windows kind of pairs them. So channels 1 and 2 are two different sliders on the interface, but Windows sees it as sound card 1, 2. But I can bring audio into the board and send it out to other sources independently, versus if you just got the Soundcraft Signature 12, it would allow you to bring in 12 different resources, but then it would only send out 2 channels of audio instead of up to 12 channels of audio.
Okay. Now, you did say today, you used the word stumble, right? You're stumbling through this experience. And you made mention last week as well when we were teasing it about the interface kind of frustrating you, but you were figuring out some of those frustrations. So can you share with us some of the stuff that you were going through and what you figured out?
I sure can. So for the longest time, no one could hear me through Zoom or through Skype. Not even a tiny whisper. And I'm like, what am I doing wrong with this? So that was driving me crazy. But then I would open Reaper and I could arm a track and load it up, and I could hear myself into Reaper and I could record, and my audio would be a little low. But the fact is I could get audio into Reaper. And I'm like, why is this not working? So that was one of my frustrations. The other one is I counted the knobs today while I was at work at my day job, doing other things, and I ended up counting 96 knobs on here. So that is overwhelming to someone who does not necessarily have a audio background, nor do I know exactly what each and every one of these knobs are. Now, I will admit, I did grab one of the kids and said, hey, can you sit down with me and help me map all these out? And Damasi and I actually talked about that on a recording. And once you get familiar with how a certain, I'm counting them right now, 9 knobs look on one channel, most of them are going to be the same going across. But when you just pull this out of the box and you look, you're like, oh, this is overwhelming. I'm not going to be able to manage this. So the more I use it and the more I get familiar with it, the easier things become to use.
Right. And associate those with the different level, the different pots, as we will call them, for your different channels. So tell us something else here, man. What are you trying to figure out now?
Okay, so right now I have a hacked together setup, and that's the thing that it's working for me. But so there's a couple of buttons across the top row. There's 2 buttons per channel, and the right button is the USB return button. So I have that pushed, and then I have the master mix button pushed on each channel, right? And then what I'm doing is I'm sending a master mix of my audio, so all of my audio from the board into Reaper. And I want to hear it, and then I send that out of Reaper into VoIP software. Sounds very convoluted. I want to see if there's an easier way to do it. But it is kind of cool because if I came prepared, I'd be able to add like an echo effect to my voice and show you guys how fancy that is. But I didn't load one up, so I didn't do it. So I'm trying to figure out, number one, is it possible to take Reaper out of the mix? And number 2, right now, I have to press the pre-fader button to listen to any audio. And the gotcha with that is I can't currently adjust the volume of JAWS because it's coming into the board and it plays at that one volume. Whereas if I wasn't using that button and doing my convoluted setup, I could adjust the audio of each independent sound source on its own. And that was pretty cool. But then the gotcha is people couldn't hear me on VoIP. So that's what I'm trying to figure out, is how to get the best of both worlds. And I hope it doesn't result in me having to switch to the Mac, because we just sold our M1 and I'm pretty happy with Windows. But yeah, that's my gotcha. I am going to be playing with virtual audio cable on Windows 10 in the near future, and a few other resources. So I'm excited to poke around at those.
Yeah, seems like still a lot of exploring going on with the inputs and outputs and figuring out if you're going to constantly be switching around a lot of things, or if there's some kind of steady setup you can have that'll work with everything, right? Like all the different platforms and recordings that you need to take part in. But
you would
Mike,
think it would be that way, because obviously, Mike, you're not the only person buying it wanting to do the same things that you want to do, and having some of the situations.
Yeah.
Even when it comes to dealing with Jaws with it, there's obviously different creative things that people want to do, and it's set up to do it. It's just, again, like we talked about arming tracks. When do you learn about that? Oh, shoot, that's how that works.
Exactly. And one of the nice things about it is there are other blind individuals who use Reaper who have the big brother, because I didn't mention, but this board does have a bigger version that Tomasi told me today he's interested in getting. I'm like, oh, of course, you have to go bigger, huh? And that's the 22 MTK. So that comes with 22 channels. I'm very interested
and 170
in that.
Something like that.
Right. That's what I was just
Sorry, I was trying to do quick math. I'm off a bit.
Yeah. But still, the fact is there's a lot of other blind, maybe not a lot. There are a few other blind individuals. And when you, as you, Kelly and Romeo both know, when you network with other people, you can have some of these questions answered versus stumbling around. That's how I learned the Reaper trick. And to get into VoIP is I talk to other blind people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there's just so many forums out there now. I mean, not all of them are obviously focused on accessibility, but when you have questions, you can almost easily just Google your specific question or issue, and somebody will have talked about it on some thread. It's just about going through it.
Sometimes the complicated part is actually figuring out how to ask the question that you want to find.
That's true too. 100%. Yeah. So does someone need to get an audio interface if they're interested in voice work or decent sounding voice over internet protocols? Or, is there workarounds around just regular setups without it?
So up until this episode, I used a Audio-Technica ATR 2100X, and that was a USB-C microphone that would let me plug it into my computer. And in my humble opinion, with the limitations that you get with VoIP bringing people in remotely, it sounded fairly okay. I, again, am not an audio expert. So I don't think that someone needs a mixer or audio interface, because now you can go pick up one of those microphones, or the one that I'm talking to right now on is the Samsung Q2U. And you can get these microphones and connect them directly to your computer via USB for under $100. Yeah. And so that is a great way to get started. If you want to get more advanced microphones that'll pick up more of your voice sound, then yeah, you're going to need an audio interface. But just to get started, I think people are sufficient with a USB microphone nowadays, and some good audio editing or audio software to be able to bring that audio in.
I think you'll have a lot of fun messing around as you do your podcasts and guests. And when you guys decide, I think I want to bring 5 more guests on here, just the different things you'll do now that you can do, but with having the interface.
Yeah, I've been playing with Clean Feed. I don't know if you guys have heard of that one, but that is a awesome tool, and I'm really liking that, especially since the guests only have to have a Chrome browser or a Chromium-based browser, and now I can bring audio in. Eventually, I want to get my phone connected to this so I can actually, call people and bother them and play around with that.
You start your own Jerky Boys album?
I don't know about that one. That sounds like a lot of headache.
Thank you for keeping us posted and walking us through your experience thus far. We're looking forward to updates and obviously more demos now that you're playing around with an audio interface.
Exactly. Next time we'll talk about Microsoft.
Oh, sounds good. Some great announcements there. Talk to you next week. Yep. Michael Babcock joining us on Mondays for a Tech Talk.
Coming up next, we're going to talk a little sports. Lots going on in the world of it. Brock Richardson, host of The Neutral Zone, joins us in a moment. Kelly and Company, Ramya Muth and Kelly McDonald, hosts of the show. It's so great when Michael was addressing the microphone issue and just things people can get and just plug in, because it's so common now, and you have to have plug in, play, go crazy, and the quality is really nice. And you can spend quite a bit of money to do stuff that, or very little, right?
Yep. But all the brands are there.
Well, they are, and they on different tiers too. And I think that's the thing that people have to understand. Compared to, and I remember years ago buying little microphones to do stuff with in the analog days, and some of them I was, oh wow, this is pretty good, but nothing holds a candle to obviously digital. And even at the same equivalent price I would have spent years ago for an analog, can get this little digital one to set up the go to your computer. That's amazing.
Yep. And
really?
Purpose, whatever you specifically need. Like for our friends who are about making YouTube videos, maybe you need a bit of a different setup than somebody who's doing all audio everything, right? So
yes,
everything's
and
out there to be catered.
Of course, music, even though just people want to play around and do a little karaoke style.
Yep.
Well, let's talk a little sports style as we bring in Brock Richardson, host of the Neutral Zone.
As a former athlete, I eat, sleep, and breathe everything sports. I'm Brock Richardson. Join me every Monday for your weekly sports highlights and our take on the weekend action.
His microphone sounds pretty good there, I have to say. Probably spent more than $7. Hello, Richardson. How are you?
More than $7.
I'm good. How are you?
Doing okay. All set to talk sports. We know you're all excited for the week. I've heard enough Maple Leaf talk from you. So we've got a few days more of tolerating that until they start getting in there and the rivalry continues. What's your leadoff today?
It's killing me. It's Thursday. Thursday is the start. But, man, it's been a crazy weekend with hockey, which we'll get to a little while in a bit. But my leadoff item is, in honor of Roy Halladay's 44th birthday, Jays Care announced first ever fully accessible baseball diamond called Halladay Field. This is located in Highview Park, which is quite near Variety Village for those of you in the GTA area. This ballpark is designed for everyone of all abilities and needs to participate. They're using the foam. It's like a foam style field so that it's accessible. There's no dirt, and pretty much anyone can use this. Brandy, Roy Halladay's wife, says this was always his dream to build a baseball park such as this, so he would be so honored and humbled that the ballpark is named directly after him. So kind of a cool story from the weekend.
Good location by the sounds of it there in East Toronto, but so close to a Variety Village facility for persons with disabilities to be able to go out, work out, and train. As so many people had done for years, especially Paralympians before the Pan Ams were there. So really excellent. Quite flattering because, Brock, when you hear about the field, the situation, the setup, the accessibility, it's just another thing you learn about Roy Halladay, that this was important to him.
Yeah. And everything that I'm reading regarding Roy Halladay, he was very, very keen on having individuals with various disabilities come to baseball games and boxes and things like that. So this is definitely on the page of something he would have done if he was still here with us today.
Want to shout out curling because the final event starts today. Tell us what's going on.
Yes, so a bit of confusion to start off. First of all, who thought that Canada's event started on Wednesday, it does not. It started today against Spain. They had a victory just now, just before I came on, actually. And TSN's coverage does not begin until Wednesday, when they'll battle Korea, followed by Scotland, followed by Czech Republic, and the Russian Curling Federation. What we've seen so far in today's game is that it's kind of been a bit of a rough start for Team Canada, but we'll see how they fare.
Okay. When you get talking about it, and you see how the representation is there, it's going to be absolutely wonderful. Some heavyweights there taking care of this. When you look at these two, and how do you feel they will fare, especially since they're both two skips and have had success together in their own right?
Yeah, so they should fare quite well. Carrie Anderson's been really busy this year. She took her women's team 4-on-4 to the Worlds, which we've talked about. She qualified there. They now have to qualify the mixed doubles team, which is a task in and of itself. What I noticed, though, with the game they had earlier today was it's more of a recreational curling ice that we're looking at. It's not your standard hockey arena made ice. It's more of your curling club ice. So this is going to be a case where they're going to have to figure it out relatively quickly. This is a quick event. They jumped down 4-0 right off the top of the event, and then they were able to battle back earlier today. But they should do well. And having two skips, you're already that forward thinking in the sense of, okay, I'm a skip. I know what I need to play, and they need to watch out for each other and give each other their own roles, because when you're both playing from the same position, you need to back off and sort of work with each other. So we'll see how that goes. But I expect them to be in the top 3 by the end of the week.
All right, Brocky, moving on to the NHL playoffs. They began this week, at least for the American teams. What did you make of the weekend action?
Very, very great weekend. All games were by 1 point. 3 out of the 4 games this weekend went into overtime. This speaks to the fact that we're playing within the divisions for the first time ever, and that teams have seen each other 7, 8, 9, 10 times this year. The teams are giving nothing to each other. They're making you figure it out, and these are going to be great series, probably coming down to 5, 6, or 7 games for sure, based on what I've seen so far. If you're looking for a couple of battles to really watch out for, the Vegas Golden Knights are always a really good team to watch. Pittsburgh Penguins, New York Islanders, great series there as well. And the Battle of Florida between the Panthers and the Tampa Bay Lightning. Great series there. That was a 5-4 game at the end of the day there. So really great series if you're going to catch up. And of course, the North Division gets going with Winnipeg and Edmonton on Wednesday, and then Toronto, Montreal Thursday.
Okay, sir. Well, there's a lot of great excitement. Hockey being a really fun sport to watch. I'm so excited for when ESPN and TNT get involved a little more, just to see what those numbers look like in the U.S., at least in the North and the East, and just seeing what people feel. I think that'll be a lot of fun. Starting next year?
Yes, starting next year. And the more platforms and eyeballs that professional sports can get on them, that's what they're going to want to do. And hockey is in the same boat. And especially when you consider the American networks, it's not as high up there as it is here for hockey, especially. So I think this is Gary Bettman and that group saying, let's get more contracts out there and get more eyeballs on it.
Yeah, for sure. The Toronto Raptors season wrapped up this weekend, and for the first time in 8 years, they will miss the playoffs. How would you categorize their season?
Tale of two tapes. Remember when the Toronto Raptors were 4th in the East before COVID hit? And then COVID hit and injuries hit. And then they started resting players, and we saw them go on a slide. So first half, really good. Top 4, I really thought they were going to be contenders. Second half, contenders for the playoffs, not a championship. I don't want to get people out there thinking I was expecting a championship. But then we saw them kind of slide off a little bit, and COVID really seemed to hit them hard, and they never really could bounce back.
How do you feel about people using these as excuses? Playing in Tampa, not Toronto, everything you just listed. Are you comfortable with that?
I think, first of all, I think to use it as an excuse is not the right way to go about it, I don't think. To use it as a factor is certainly a way to go about it, but I do not want to hear, if it wasn't for COVID or if it wasn't for injuries, then this wouldn't be the case. Because yes, it's a factor. Yes, they were in Tampa, but you can't put all of that and say, well, that's the reason they are where they are, because I just simply don't think it's true.
Right.
What's on the priority list this year for the off season for the Toronto Raptors, or during the off season?
First things first, figure out what you're doing with Masai Ujiri. Figure out whether he's staying, whether he's going. You've got Bobby Webster. You've got Nick Nurse under contract for a little while longer. You got to figure out who the president's going to be. And Masai does have a lot of pull, not the most, obviously, but he does have a lot of pull with this organization. Figure that out first and foremost, and then use your salary cap. You saved up a lot for Giannis, didn't get that. You're now going to have a lot of salary caps. Go and convince a big player to come to Toronto. Go and actually convince someone. Look, sign here. We've seen it done with the Blue Jays, with Springer, with Simeon, with Matz, etc. Do that here with the Raptors. That is your first couple of priorities, and make it that people want to come to Toronto. This has been the misnomer of like, oh, we get big names a la Kawhi Leonard because, over trade, couldn't keep him. Convince someone to come here and stay for the long term to build this team. Do I think for 1 second Kyle Lowry is going to play another game in Toronto? No. I think we've seen that where it's going to go. I think we need to fill that spot and use more of our salary cap.
I don't know about this free agent class and who needs to be signed, who's available, so I can't even come up with a name without looking at it. I know we hopefully will get a good draft pick position. So is there anyone that screams out at you that it comes to mind that is a free agent that you think could be a possibility, or too much of a stretch?
It's right now. It's a bit of a stretch. It becomes who doesn't sign with their current team. I think we'll know early on in the offseason where the Toronto Raptors will land in that regard. But I just want to see them actually realistically in the conversation for a name of some kind, particularly in the big department. I think we need a big. We might need another point guard. But I don't want to see this, we're in conversation with everyone, because we've already heard that. Let's actually get someone to come here and be a good piece for the Toronto Raptors.
Rocky, the Toronto Blue Jays really, before we go really quickly, played their weekend series against the Philadelphia Phillies. How did they fare?
Really well. They've got 2 out of those 3 games. They really could have got 3 out of 3, but we'll take 2 out of 3. I think we're set up nicely against Boston, and the longer you can keep George Springer out and be getting him healthy with having some success, the better it'll be, and that's what we're seeing. And we're getting productivity from the bottom of the order, which is really nice to see. When everyone thought, oh, George Springer's out again, who knows what this is going to be. If you'd asked me if the Toronto Blue Jays would have been 5 games above 500 at this point with all the injuries, I'd have said you're crazy. So I think we're in a good spot.
You satisfied where the starters are at and the bullpen look, other than Tyler?
We're coming along. There's a couple of bullpen names. Thomas Hatch, who's hopefully going to be coming back as a starter, but we'll see. The bullpen is holding up. I'm just needing those starters to go just a little further into games more consistently, and then we can rest the bullpen for longer.
Thanks, pal. Talk to you next week for sports right here on the show. We'll get an update from you on the Neutral Zone Friday when you're back. Thanks, man.
Thank you.
Brock Richardson, host of the Neutral Zone. You can join him and the team Fridays at 4 p.m. Eastern here on AMI Audio, and he hits us on Mondays with our sports update. We'll take a break, ladies and gentlemen, and coming up next, Christopher Vallée, AMI TV reporter from Ottawa, is going to join us to chat about the AMI original documentary, Is It Time for Online? We'll speak to him in a moment. Well, we've been saying it, ladies and gentlemen, and there's a particular reason why I'm going to push it again today. Registered for AMI's first ever online virtual event, AMI Connect. Starting at noon, June 3rd, you'll be able to interact and ask questions of folks from across the AMI family of programs, like our Kelly & Company team and AMI This Week, just to name a couple. Plus, learn about new shows coming to AMI. Everyone who attends a session and will be entered into a draw for prizes. But here's the news that I really wanted to remind you about. If you enter before May 20th, you'll be entered into a draw to win an Apple Watch. Register now at this free event at amiconnect.vfairs.com. That's amiconnect.vfairs.com. Kelly McDonald with Ramya Muthan.
All right. On Mondays, we like to check in with our friends from AMI TV, and they give us lots of great updates on what's going on AMI TV. And today we're checking in with Christopher Valley, reporter in Ottawa. It feels like it's been a long time, Chris. How are you?
Has been a while. I'm good. How are you? How's your Monday afternoon?
Good. You know, we're keeping busy, and I'm sure you are too, with this new AMI original documentary, and it's called Is It Time for Online? So there's a lot of stuff going on online these days. So we're curious to know what the main focus is of this documentary. You want to tell us?
Definitely. So I think most people are, in this period of adjustment where they're working from home and doing online virtual setups. But this doc specifically will target online education. And whether or not this past year of this pandemic year of working from home and learning from home has benefited students at both the elementary, secondary, and post-secondary levels. So we're speaking to students as well as parents, as well as teachers, faculty members. It's really a really important topic to address, I believe.
It's been really interesting because you see on recently, I think it was over the weekend on the news, them talking about teachers that have had that opportunity to say, well, this is the fears I have for down the road. Are students going to be, when it comes time, equipped enough? Are we teaching them as much as we can to keep them on par with where they should be? Are people on favor with it becoming online education, that is, becoming more permanent in its current form? And why or why not?
That's a really good question. I would say the people who are in favor most of them are at the post-secondary level, because post-secondary educational systems have already been sort of doing this hybrid model where they're offering classes online. So I'd say their technology is more in-depth. And wasn't this whole, switch last minute. Mm-hmm. As for the elementary and secondary levels, they're only consuming about 60 to 65% of the curriculum. And I know when I spoke to one of the students and parents at the elementary level, one of the biggest concerns is kids don't have a huge attention span at the age of, 5, 6. It's hard to stay in front of a screen and stay attentive. A lot of schooling at that age is playing with toys and socializing with kids, and that's kind of being taken away from them. So there's definitely some pros and cons. I've heard some pros from some students, but it's not without to say that there needs to be some work on the cons for sure.
And you can't do an overall thing with this, Chris. Like it's not that, when online school is working, or no, it's not, whether provincially or, nationally or otherwise, because there's all these different age groups, like you were mentioning, all these different kinds of curriculums. Some are so much more social and physical activity based versus others that are, more academic, or you could be used to the idea of what it could be to online learn, let's say at a university lecture, right? Versus someone who's in grade 1 and looking forward to nap time or something. Like it's just so all over the place. So there's no way for us to say, yes, it's working, or no, it's not working. There's a lot of nuances to consider. Well, some people would argue the same arguments hold for homeschooling, right? For people who are in the situation where they either choose to, some people have no choice, but you find these problems. And Chris, is one of the things you mentioned about the play, the getting along, learning how to be able to get along with other people you can only do when you're together. Then we get the component that means a lot to us, the accessible stuff. How has that been rebuilt?
Of course. And it's funny that you mentioned, homeschooling, because I was basically my entire secondary education was me at home. So I definitely relate to this topic heavily. In terms of accessibility, I think it's, really unfortunately been an afterthought in its current model. There is not enough work to make the platform in its current form accessible. I think that's a huge concern for many people. Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. So I do, the government has announced that they are considering, or they're implementing online for this upcoming school year. So a lot of parents want to know, like, is it going to be the same, or are they actually going to invest dollars into this platform and make it greater?
Well, and it's tough because there are situations out there that you need a pandemic to make the government say, yeah, we should really invest and start looking into how we can do homeschooling. There are a sector of our community that, unfortunately, if people could stay at home and not risk certain situations or be able to do it, or an inaccessible school, if a person's in a very small rural, community and their disability, makes it harder for them to do certain things. But if they could be at home, hooked up to technology, for that few people that really might work for, it's got to be worth us knowing, yep, this is how we implement that for those people.
Mm-hmm. Of course. And like I spoke to the Teachers Federation, Harvey Bischoff is the vice president or the president of the Secondary Teachers Federation. And he was saying that, by having all of these kids online, they're actually, the government is saving a lot of money. So why not invest that money that's supposed to be used for education back into the online educational platform? Which it isn't at the moment.
Mm-hmm. And we probably know the answer to why not.
Yeah.
Pandemic. And where else do we got to pay our bills?
For sure, exactly.
So you were talking about, homeschooling and being able to relate to that aspect or that comparison, but also just this whole thing of Zoom fatigue and screen fatigue and too much screen time. A lot of us can put our hands up to say, yes, I can relate to this, right? Even if it's not necessarily online schooling. So did the documentary touch on that concept?
Definitely. So we definitely touched on Zoom fatigue as it's something that we're all kind of sensing. And I think it's a huge relatable topic at the moment. It's been tough for students. Like I said, it's much harder for some people to stay attentive while looking at a screen instead of being in a physical environment where there's more interaction. Mm-hmm. So it's definitely been tough, and people have had to. A few of the students have told me that they've had to be super strict with their at-home rules. So, when it is 4:00, you close the computer, you don't look back.
Right.
Because a lot of them have actually worked a lot more during this time because it's so accessible, right? You just open your laptop and you can start working.
But imagine the focus you have to have, like not even just the focus, but learning to focus differently because now we're all in our own environments, right? We talked about on a work level, what's that like, especially with you guys having gone out in the field for so long and then having to do a lot of it now from home, from potentially your dining tables, that kind of thing. But really just to be able to say, yeah, I need to learn how to discipline differently now because I'm at home all the time and I need to be able to segment out and compartmentalize mentally what's going on.
Of course. And for some people, myself included, sometimes it's hard to make that separation. I am very much ashamed to say that sometimes I check my emails right before bed. Not a great idea, but I think a lot of people can relate to that.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yeah.
Constantly, when are you shut off? And one would argue how much worse has that become since the pandemic, since we're working from home, but there have always been that amount of people who that's just what they do. Who else is concerned about this kind of education?
Everyone, really. It seems like teachers are heavily concerned because, they're not built for this. They weren't trained to teach someone online. When they went to teachers college, their whole method of pedagogy is to teach in class and vocalize with the students and interact with people, whereas a lot of students now have their mics off, cameras off, so it's hard for students to maneuver, or teachers rather, to maneuver and, get the best out of the education system. So that's definitely been challenging for them, as well as the parents. The parents had to step in quite drastically because, the younger kids need a bit of guidance and help. So it's been tough for pretty much everyone across the board.
Yeah, my mom's a teacher, and she now tells us Zoom stories like the way you would tell customer service stories in the past. Like it's just a lot of interesting things going on Zoom platforms.
Of course.
Yeah.
And it's like, it makes you wonder, especially in college levels, these programs, for example, I took radio broadcasting. How is that taught online?
Yep.
Yep.
And that getting into people's homes too, like where does a teacher oh my goodness, that kid's room is messy. Where do you just leave that alone, or are you making a call? By the way, get your kid to clean up the room. It looks gross. What is on the back wall?
For sure.
Brutal. Before we go, Chris, one student did have something positive to say and said that something great has come out of this kind of online learning. What did she have to say?
Of course. She had mentioned that with online learning and just, her regular life, this online virtual option has given her more opportunity to attend classes more frequently, go to events outside of school that she wouldn't otherwise be able to because they were only held in person. So definitely this virtual world has opened a lot of doors and a lot of opportunities. I think the clear message is just let's hold on to that and just improve it so that it is more accessible and, the flaws can be dealt with. But definitely there's been some people who kind of would love to have this hybrid model where when they feel like going in class, they can, and when they don't, they stay home.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Chris, when is the special on? Tonight, right?
No, it is on Friday the 28th at 8 p.m.
Awesome. Did my own buzzer for that.
Well, we're looking forward to learning more because, this is a really timely discussion, of course, but there's going to be tons of things discussed, and you were just giving us the preview. Appreciate it, Chris. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you so much.
Christopher Valley joining us from Ottawa. He's our bureau reporter over there and previewing this documentary, Is It Time for Online?
Have you talked to many people, that have their kids doing it? And we obviously understand the problems that a lot of parents would have. Oh, look, I've got to work. Who's with the children? And so on in the fight for, we need them back in the classroom. Have people mentioned the real struggle, especially persons with disabled children?
Yeah, absolutely. The struggle is mostly that you feel like you're not learning. That's what I've been hearing, that you feel like you're not learning. The 60 to 65% is a very believable stat because people are saying they can't focus. And especially the milestone years, right, Kel's grade 12 into university or graduating years, things like that.
Yeah. And how do you teach certain things virtually? And that's what they've got to find, especially in a pinch. We'll take a break. Coming up in the next hour, Real Abilities Film Festival is back, and it's taking place virtually from the 18th to the 30th. We speak with the festival coordinator, Lyndall Rossi. Know Your Rights contributor Danielle McLaughlin discusses freedom of expression and the bill to amend Canada's Broadcast Act. But up next, we visit with one of our community reporters, Doug McQuaker's here from Northern Ontario.
When out and about, car horns have their own language. The one that toots high. The one that beeps quickly in succession to say, hey, I'm here. And the long blast that says, get out of my way. I'm important and I'm in a hurry. Safe travels. You're listening to Kelly and Company on AMI Audio.
I know it's Monday, but I'll give you a little quick preview of something going on the weekend as we return back to Kelly and Company. Romeo Muth and Kelly McDonald, hosts of the show. This week on AMI at the Movies, it's Ray, starring Jamie Foxx. It's the story of the life and career of Ray Charles from his humble beginnings in the South, where he went blind at the age of 7, to his rise of stardom in the 1950s and 60s. Tune into AMI at the Movies, Saturday at 9 p.m. Eastern on AMI TV, hosted by Ramya and myself. Keeping everyone busy, ladies and gentlemen, as we've made the switch. We should be used to this now. No mistakes on our part. Bringing on community reporters on Mondays and Tuesdays, no longer Thursdays.
Yes.
Oh, sorry, there is a caveat. Unless because Mondays have holidays, folks, can't do them on a Monday. Now, there was an outlier at one time. If we look back many years ago, when the show started, there was one outlier named McQuaker. And that guy we had to bring on Mondays due to convenience, due to the fact that his celebrity status demanded it. This community reporter we welcome back here on a Monday and say, well, trendsetter, but unfortunately we had interrupted his trend for a while, but he now returns to Mondays to bring us a community report. Hello, Dougie.
How are you guys?
All right, so far. He's out in Atikokan, folks, and he's got news for us from that neck of the woods. Doug, we're starting with Wildlife film project here. This is really interesting. You got Oscar Wilde and different films, writers and films of that nature involved in this.
Yes, and this is something unique where you will learn different skills. But I think what it mainly will teach you, and all experience levels are welcome. Now it's a recurring event. It started January 16th, runs to May 22nd, and the cost is $125. But the uniqueness to this is you get to learn acting on film, music and movement, virtual theater, which I think is really cool. It's going to be puppetry and animation, and also filmmaking. So if you have a knack or you want to dabble in how to learn all these skills, I think this is a great workshop where you can get all kinds of different ideas, and they'll show you how to develop these skills. The large group, it meets on Wednesdays from 6 to 7:30, and then on Saturdays, that's the smaller group, from 10 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. And it's virtual learning, like it's on Zoom, but at the same time, I think it's such a uniqueness to it, Kel. And
for the youth, it's going to be really great for them to get the chance to do this kind of thing through the children's theater that is, is putting this on, and I think it's wonderful when you get a chance to do some of this stuff. And we talk a lot, as we were in the last segment, about our attention spans and kids' attention spans and stuff like that. But when you look at youth theater and the way they can change things up, I think you can even capture that even virtually.
Right, and the ages are from 9 to 18. But I agree with you, Kelly. It gets you, as they say, music and movement. But you're moving around and you're learning these. I think these are amazing skills. Honestly, I do, and I think that it's such a great thing that they're offering to learn the different variety of skills that you'll learn.
Yeah, and we'll put it up on the blog, of course, ami.ca/KellyCo, so that if you're interested in getting your child involved or anyone hearing this saying, hey, man, that might be really cool to be involved with. And I would even not hesitate to inquire, no matter where you were hearing this, of course, Doug, because you can do stuff like this from anywhere. So maybe they have people, they prefer people in their local area. Maybe there's a precedent, but this is something that would pull, I think, anyone in.
I agree, because like you say, it's online and it's through Zoom, so anyone can log on. As you say, you'll put it up on the blog and the email is there, but I do, and I really hope that they get people to learn, because I think it's such a great experience where you will learn all these different amazing skills.
For sure. Absolutely. And if the interest is there, then the opportunity is here for people to try out. Okay, second on your list is experimenting with mindfulness to support your well-being. This is also a really timely thing, Doug.
Yes, this is something that due to, COVID-19 and the pandemic, and I don't want to, beat a dead horse, because, we've been going through it for almost 15 months now, but I think the idea of this, and I hope people will log on and take advantage of this well-being. Now, the cost of it's $25, and it is this coming Thursday, which is May 20th, and it's going to show you how to calm your body, like it's meditating, but as you learn through this workshop, it will show you the different types of how you can calm your stress level, and it will get to the point as you learn these different ones that they're going to show you, the one that will be the best for yourself, the one that will that you can choose. Now, the benefits to this is that it will it'll lower your blood pressure, it'll improve your heart rate, it will give you an idea of how to focus your brain. So, like, you know, in those days that maybe you're in a fog, you won't get there because you're focusing your performance on how to meditate. It also lowers your anxiety and depression. And I do think that this is something maybe people can take advantage of right now if they're having a stressful life. And it, as I was saying, it will show you all different skills on how to learn to just be like in a calm presence of your mind and just they say when you do log on and join this workshop, choose comfortable clothing. Also be in a peaceful and quiet, I guess, you know, space in your wherever you are, or whether it's in your house or your home, your apartment. But I mean, I hope that it will show you how to just be in a better perspective, how to just to calm everything and just, you know, take a moment, like, you know, chill out. But I don't mean that like in a bad way. I mean, this will show you.
No, but it's to look within yourself, really, right, Doug? Because there's so many external factors going on, and all of that is really influencing us to feel lonely or upset, or, you know, like our whole life's been put on pause, as you're saying. But really what mindfulness is, being able to look within yourself to feel better, or to come to terms, or to get into something that's more of a neutral headspace. But it's hard to think about it that way if you have no practice. And that's why a workshop like this is amazing.
I'm sorry, Romney, I don't mean to interrupt you. It's just, you're right. Like, I totally hear what you're saying, and this will show you how to do it. And I'm happy that there are people that are going to put this workshop online, and you will learn. Like I say, they'll show you all kinds of different ones, but there's one that you will come to, the one you will choose that will be the best for you. And I think that is, it's a great thing. Like, whether we needed it before, I think we, as you were saying, you know, we're finding that we are lonely or lonelier, and maybe your stress levels are higher. Maybe you do have anxiety and depression. And I just think this is such a unique thing at this present moment that will show you just to you know, calm yourself and put yourself in a better perspective of your mindfulness. Yep.
Doug, I want to move on to something else. Jeff Ryman shared with us his experience getting vaccinated the other day. You had yours fairly recently as well.
Yes, mine was not last Wednesday, the Wednesday before, so May 5th. It was at 3 p.m., and it was in, like, right in Atikokan, where I grew up, and it was such a cool thing. And why I say this is because when they, because they're saying that to get an appointment, you have to, there's different, all kinds of, it seems to me, from what I understood, is you had to kind of jump through hoops how to book appointment online. Which I thought I was going to have to do, and I guess I would have figured it out, but I got lucky because they phoned me and asked me if I had been vaccinated, and I said no, and they said, would you like to be vaccinated, Doug? And I said, yeah, that would be great. So that the phone call I got was from the clinic in Atikokan, and then they passed, once I said that I would like to be vaccinated, they passed it on to the family health in Atikokan, and it just, you know, I got my
Went
time.
From there.
They told me what time to come, where to be, and it was fast. Like, Jazz and I walked in, and they didn't have a problem with Jazz coming into the building, and it was just, I had my mask on. I sat down with the doctor. She asked me all kinds of questions that they need to know. And another thing that I didn't know, because they say once you get your first one, you have to wait, I think it's 3 months or 4 months to your second shot. So I was scheduled
at this time. That's where it is. Yeah.
Right. But I was scheduled to have mine in August. But the doctor asked me, "Are you a transplant recipient?" And I said, "Yes." She goes, "Well, what was transplant?" I said, "I had a kidney transplant." So she said, "Wait a minute." She went to ask a nurse, because as I've spoken in the past about my kidney transplant and all the fun things I went through, that they upped my appointment and to 28 days.
Nice.
So I will be again. I think. Well, they said they'd call me, but the way I did the math, it should be early June. But then, so once I get that, I'll be good to go. I'll be fully vaccinated, and I didn't really honestly have a problem with it. It was so fast and smooth going. Now, I will say this. The next morning, your arm does ache, so you know that you had the vaccination, and there are a few side effects, but I do definitely say, if you get a call, get it. I didn't have a problem getting it, and I'm glad I did get it, and I honestly can't wait. I'm excited to get my final shot, and then I'm fully vaccinated. So
I'm glad they reached out to you, and as a transplant patient, I would think that totally an acceptable, necessary thing to do, and seeing that they're going to get you back in there, that's really nice to see them on the ball about that, and that you didn't fall through any cracks, that they said, hey, hold on, wait a second. And I found it didn't hurt either. I barely felt the needle, was a little sleepy.
No, I didn't feel the needle at all. Like I said, I don't know about you, but my arm ached a bit the next day. But honestly, I think I was okay. I had a bit of it almost felt kind of like a flu. There were a couple days where I had to just rest more. And my doctors, when they originally told me about it back in March, they said you might go through those symptom stuff. Just don't worry about it. That's that's telling you that the vaccination's working. So. Yeah, so no,
that's
you don't
good.
feel it at all, like you were saying, Kel. I didn't feel it at all. Yeah.
That's the beautiful thing about it. Dougie, thanks a lot. Appreciate having you back on the Monday, and a beautiful report. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Have a great day, and look forward to talking to you guys next month.
Doug McQuaker, our community reporter out in Atikokan, Ontario, telling us some things out of the north and sharing with us some experience. AMI.ca/Kelly Co. You can check out the blog for what he has mentioned on his report. In a moment, we're going to be talking about the Real Abilities Film Festival here in Toronto. It's back for its 6th annual. We're going to learn more about it right after this. Welcome back. It's Kelly and Company. Romeo Muth and Kelly McDonald, hosts of the program. Remember to check out the Kelly and Company podcast, available using your favorite podcatcher, where you can listen to the show in segment form, or you can listen to the complete show, the Kelly and Company Complete Podcast, and we throw on the end of that an audio vanity card provided by one of the team, just giving you a little background on maybe the individual, maybe the show, maybe nothing really important, which is half of the things I throw out there. But sometimes people say, hey, Kel, that was actually kind of interesting. And I'm always surprised. But feel free to check it out, the complete Kelly and Company podcast experience, using your favorite podcatcher. Well, one of the things that I absolutely love to hear about, and have had an opportunity to drop in once or twice in the history so far, Real Abilities Film Festival in Toronto here is back for the 6th annual festival. It's taking place online from May 18th to 30th. Joining us to talk a little bit about it is the festival coordinator, Linda Lurasi, and she is in Toronto. Linda, thanks for being with us on Kelly and Company, and let's look at this. It's time to celebrate. This is the 6th annual festival. Can you tell us a little bit about what the festival is for people who don't really know about it and how it's grown?
Thank you so much for inviting us. And yeah, we're super excited to bring the 6th annual Real Abilities Festival. So our festival promotes the work of deaf and disabled filmmakers and performers And our films highlight and spotlight deaf and disabled communities from around the world. And our festival has grown steadily over the years. The last 2 years, this year included, we have gone virtually to, of course, comply with the pandemic, but also it's been a wonderful opportunity to reach even larger audiences.
Very nice.
Yes, it is. And people have been really promoting and looking forward to it. And with the virtual comes some real interesting additions to the event. So this year's event offers Real Education Matinees. Can you tell us what this is?
Absolutely. So this, starting tomorrow, this week, from the 18th to the 21st, Real Education Matinees are programs that are put together for students and educators from K to 12. They are all free and accessible, and they include films, and they are paired with interesting activities, workshops, and conversations around disability, diversity, and inclusion.
I just absolutely love that. So that would mean that particular film going to run, you have the program set up, class tunes in, so you could virtually have hundreds of children tuning into these, or hopefully more.
Yes. That's been one of the blessings of this kind of format, is that we've been able to reach larger numbers of classrooms for all of these events. And so registrants are sent links for the films to watch in their own time. And then at the designated time, the live events happen on Zoom and are available for people to tune in.
You know, it's interesting, Linda, because we think, well, it's virtual. You know, you're not going to have as much to put into in the way of building it up, especially as the virus went along. The planning is there. You did it once. This is the second one. But what you're telling us here, to me, sounds still like a multitude of work that had to be done, not just, you know, picking films and everything like that, just making sure so many things are on platforms, so many things are timed out, and reaching out to schools and everyone saying, hey, we're here.
Absolutely. And, you know, we're really meeting a need. I think there's a lot of us, you know, are stuck at home, and including, you know, educators are swamped, and students are eager to find content. So it's been really exhilarating to connect with community partners and to put together events that are not just film viewing, but that are you know, workshops that students can be actively engaged in. And you know, participate in learning that way.
Amazing. Well, tell us about this comedy night and what we can expect there.
Yeah, so we're super excited to bring back comedy night. It's always one of the most beloved events that Real Abilities puts together. So this year it's hosted again by our wonderful friend of the festival, Ophira Kaloff, who is also premiering one of her films at our Youth Shorts program, which closes the festival. But Comedy Night is a mixture of live and recorded events, and we have a community after party that'll take place just after the Comedy Night proper. And we have some familiar faces like Desiree Walsh and Avon Port that are joining us, and it's going to be a blast.
Oh, that's excellent. Excellent. As for the rest of the film festival, how many films have you guys collected for this year?
So we have just over 15 films this year, and more if you include the Real Education programs. But we have a really wonderful, diverse roster of films, and we are particularly excited this year to highlight films of young, emerging disabled filmmakers, and just sort of, you know, as always, the festival is an opportunity to have really interesting conversations from all corners of the disability community, and we're just really delighted to bring some really new, interesting, fresh takes this year in the films.
Can you give us more information on the types of films, or you know, particularly if there's some themes that want to be highlighted?
Yeah, for sure. So in our closing night program, we have the Youth Shorts program, which, as I mentioned, features the work of young disabled emerging filmmakers. So that includes 6 shorts. And the themes that are sort of prominent in that program are these questions of disability and disclosure, what it means to disclose in disability, in the dating world, in medical settings, in the professional world, and how we navigate that and navigate it in kind of a witty and taking a really fresh perspective on those subjects. And then we have one of the really wonderful events is the documentary film The Reason I Jump, which is based on a memoir of a young Japanese non-speaking autistic man, and we're pairing that with two films from two young autistic filmmakers. And we are really excited to put together a post-screening panel in which we include folks from the non-speaking and speaking community, and they will be exploring the ways in which art and filmmaking can be used as a vehicle for self-expression for young autistic folks.
Excellent. As the coordinator, Linda, how difficult was it when you talk of, listening you say about pairing things up, finding those panels, putting them together, to coordinate all this for you?
It's been an interesting experience. So I'm new to the Real Abilities team, but it's truly a team effort. I think I'm really grateful for everyone just sort of putting their heads together and putting the effort to reach out to the community, to find people that are interesting voices to really spotlight, and to just work to make the most out of the conversations that we have around these really wonderful themes that are touched upon by all of the films that we show during our festival that represent, as I said, many corners of the disability community.
Mm-hmm. And representing all these different voices, right? Even with the similar concepts and things like that, you want to hear from all kinds.
Absolutely. We want always, in putting together the festival, for us to really reflect the diversity of our community. And I think for this year, we're particularly proud that we're able to offer audio description for all of our films. Nice. In addition to open captions, which we always do, as a means of really just wanting to make not only the content of the films accessible in terms of the representation, but to literally make the festival and the films accessible to the community.
Wow. Well, we know how important with our relationship that we've had over at AMI with the festival over the years that was a big one for them to be able to make sure as many people are included in any way, and that the description piece is really important. Can people still sign up? I know we're getting close. And what is the cost?
Absolutely. So the festival is pay what you can with a suggested fee of $10, but tickets are still available at realabilities.org/Toronto. And the whole listing of events is available and open for registration.
Amazing. Is there anything else we've missed from what you want to highlight throughout the festival, Linda, or anything that you'd really love for people to check out if they are attending? Some shout outs.
Absolutely, yeah. So our opening night film, Give Me Liberty, is a really wonderful. It's an indie darling. It represents this chaotic collision of voices in life, and a wide array of folks in the disability community are represented. And we took inspiration from the film to put together a panel which is moderated by our artistic director, Liv Mendelson, that is about care across communities. I think in this COVID moment in particular, we recognize the need for us to reach out to one another. And so it'll be an interesting conversation about what it means to be able to support each other from the different places we occupy in the disability community and beyond.
Wonderful. Well, first, good luck to Liv and all of you who put this together. It's a tremendous effort, and I know with the partners, that's very important too for something like this, having their support, but also for getting word and knowledge out there to those of us taking things in that may not know a lot about one community or another or the disabled community.
Yes, absolutely. It's a wonderful way to reach larger and larger portions of the community, and to be able to have these conversations across across different parts of our community. So it's been essential to have the support of our partners throughout in putting together our festival and making it, as we hope, will be the best we've had.
Also, encourage people, sign up, go to the panels, and ask questions too, I'm assuming?
Absolutely, yes.
Linda, absolutely fantastic. Thanks a lot for popping on Kelly and Company today and telling us about the festival and getting us ready.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for this opportunity, and we really look forward to seeing everyone at the festival.
All right. Hopefully people will get out there. We'll get it up on the blog, ami.ca/KellyCo, so they can follow the links. That was Real Abilities Film Festival Toronto Festival Coordinator Linda LaRossi joining us to tell us a little bit about the event, which starts tomorrow. The 18th of May runs to the 30th. We're going to take a short break. And Rum, I remember you and I going to the festival 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. And just what a good feel, and so proud.
Absolutely, Kels.
Danielle McLaughlin will be here to talk about freedom of expression and the bill to amend Canada's Broadcast Act after this break. Some channel locations you may wish to take AMI audio in. Settle back at your TV and enjoy the programming. In Western Canada, TELUS Channel 889 and Rogers Channel 196. Visit ami.ca/schedules for a list of channel locations in your area. Kelly McDonald with my co-host, Ramya Muthan.
Let's get to another Monday staple. Every Monday around this time, we like to check in with our friend Danielle McLaughlin on Know Your Rights.
Let's examine questions that can't be answered by a simple yes or no. Join me, Danielle McLaughlin, when we talk about how freedoms collide on Know Your Rights.
Today we're going to be getting into a bit of discussion on our freedom of speech, freedom of expression. We'll see where this conversation goes. But Bill C-10 and its proposed amendments have become very controversial.
Prime Minister Trudeau, withdraw this terribly flawed bill that your own minister cannot even explain. It is unfair to trample on the rights of Canadians, to try and mislead them by saying they must accept regulation of their social media in order to help artists.
Wow. Danielle, I mean, there are a million ways to go with this conversation, of course, but we'll start here. Is there a necessity for a new law to regulate what can be posted on social media? And I'm sure that any of us who's on any kind of social media would probably have an opinion on this.
Well, that's exactly right, Ramya. In fact, I think we all have an opinion, but the trouble with when the government has an opinion, it has this nasty way of becoming a law. The Canadian Broadcasting Act was last updated in 1991. And so people have said, well, it's really out of date. We need to make sure that the CRTC, which I'm sure everybody knows, the broadcasting body that regulates, the body that regulates broadcasting, is really just looking at radio and television. And now there are so many other ways people communicate that need to be regulated in some way. Other people say, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. One of the things that the regulation did was help to decide who got bandwidth on radio. Now, there was a limited amount of space on traditional ways of broadcasting television and radio, but with social media and web-based media, that doesn't exist anymore. So some people have said, well, this isn't even relevant. Why play around with that? And other people have said, stuff happens on social media. One of the questions people have asked is, when you post something on a platform, whatever that platform might be, are you broadcasting or are you communicating? And there's no clear answer to that question. If I put up photographs of my garden, am I broadcasting to the world that I have a pretty garden, or am I communicating to my very few friends?
Yeah.
Look at my tulips.
Yeah. It's kind of like the decision of if you're posting something online or you're broadcasting online or on a chat system online versus being on a CB radio, right? Like it's a chat form.
Well, yeah, unless you're doing something that is clearly broadcasting, in which case you're probably talking about political speech. Well, generally we protect political speech, except under certain circumstances. So what are they doing and why are they doing it, I think is one of our big questions. And as you know, I like to ask three very basic questions when we look at new legislation. And the first one is why do it? A lot of it has to do with money. I mean, what doesn't have to do with money these days, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, with the traditional broadcasting media, money can be made, by charging for, putting things up. You can also assure that, for example, Canadian musicians have space that is relegated for their performances or their music, whereas with the other forms of posting, people aren't being paid for their work. They, a lot of money isn't coming into pockets, and a lot of this has to do with the streaming of music.
Right.
So, people are saying, well, we should be paying these artists, and let's regulate it in such a way that artists get paid. And, governments are saying, well, look at all of the news media that is not getting paid for, people capturing on social media what they've put out in their, online formats. So, do we need to have some regulation with regard to who gets paid and who's paying them? So these are some of the goals. Another one of the goals is that there's some pretty ugly stuff out there. And, we've all heard about people who are bullied online. We've heard about, pornography or child pornography being posted. We've heard about hate speech. And, who should be responsible for that? Should it be that the platforms are responsible? So, as an example, in Germany, there's a 24-hour rule. If somebody is told that what they have posted crosses a line, it has to be removed within 24 hours. That's pretty fast. And what it can mean, not all the time, but what it can mean is that if the platforms are afraid that they are going to fall afoul of government regulation, they're going to tell people to take stuff down without really looking very carefully at it.
Right.
So this could easily happen here, where governments are saying, platforms, you're responsible to regulate what goes on, and we're going to make sure that there are penalties applied to what just stuff that's there that ought not to be there.
So instead of necessarily going after the individual, which is what platforms have hidden behind before, we have rules, but that person broke them, so deal with them, we'll ban them off. Now you could have the platform getting itself into trouble.
That's right.
With the way they do it there.
Yeah. So, my next question is, will this bill actually achieve the goals it's looking to achieve? And that's not a simple question to ask. Maybe yes, maybe no. We still have to know what all the goals are, because it's not really transparent here.
Right.
We really aren't clear.
Like the clip made it that way too, as you said. We don't know. And there's a lot of what sounds like nice things put out front there. And sorry, your third.
Yeah. Aaron O'Toole is, highly critical of the government for good reason, because it really is unclear. It's a very muddy looking bill. The third question, and in my opinion is always the most important, is what else is going to happen? What are some of the side effects? And I think I've mentioned, that it will have what people who fight for freedom of expression call the chilling effect. People will be afraid to post things that are political or are controversial or are just, silly, because they're afraid that there could be a penalty. When the government revised the bill just less than a week ago, they took out protections for user-created content. So if you're the user of, say, YouTube, and you post a cat video, chances are nobody's going to go after you. But, but that's not the only kind of... Yeah, I know.
Other than Kelly.
Yes, I know somebody who got very upset when they saw a video of a cat eating its dinner, and someone put a cucumber next to the cat, and the cat leapt up about 12 feet, and they felt that was animal cruelty, while other people were laughing because they thought it was pretty funny. So, one person thinks, hey, that's pretty funny, and somebody else says, get rid of that immediately because that's showing cruelty to animals, and it's going to give other people...
eat a cucumber.
Yeah. I think they're scared of cucumbers, but I haven't quite worked out why. Maybe they think they're snakes or something like that. But, but the thing is that, people have, the governments always say the same thing when they come in with a sort of a vague piece of legislation. They say, well, don't worry about it. We're not going after, the person innocently putting up the cat video. That's not the question. What you really need to ask is, could this bill create a situation where that can happen? Maybe this government won't go after the innocent-looking material, but we can't tell you anything about the next government.
That's right.
And if you create a saggy piece of legislation where anything can kind of sneak in under the folds, yes, it can happen. Can you guarantee that it won't happen? Absolutely not. You can't guarantee
everything
that at all.
changes. I mean, what they look and scrutinize, even if they were to take that fine tooth, or what do you call it, the comb, and comb through it, and like, wow, let's see what we've got here, and sort it out. You're going to have to accept that every 30 years looking at it and considering what needs to be updated is like far too long. You do have to do some updating, but accurately, because things change just like that.
Well, that's right. And sometimes, you get the feeling that they're, using a meat cleaver where they really need a pair of tweezers. It's very difficult to decide what could happen because, our imaginations only go a certain width, and things have a nasty way of turning around and biting you on the back. If you look at, for example, university speech codes, which were intended originally to protect racialized people from ugly speech, who were the first people who fell afoul of those speech codes? Racialized people, because they were the easy targets to go after. That wasn't what was intended. Nonetheless, that is what happened. So you have to look at this legislation. One of the things that I find rather troubling is there is an office within the government which determines whether proposed legislation meets charter scrutiny. Would it actually, pass, say, the Supreme Court, or pass a charter examination, a Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms examination? The standard that they appear to use is there any chance at all that this could pass charter scrutiny? Instead of looking at it the other way around, which is to say, what is really wrong with this legislation, and is there what can't pass charter scrutiny here? So any chance at all really depends on what will the courts say. One of the things we know about the current anti-hate legislation is that courts disagree. One court will say, yes, that expression is definitely hate. And another court will say, no, it doesn't cross the line into hate. It's, strong dislike or something to that effect. So unless, you are very cautious when you draft legislation not to be vague or overly broad, you're going to end up with something that just won't do the trick that you think it will, and will do a lot of other harm that you hadn't really considered. I just wanted to ask a question to you guys. Do you think that Canadians pay enough attention to freedom of expression, to their own rights and to their right to freedom of expression?
Well, that's You know what, Danielle? I mean, I guess it depends on how you look at it for yourself, right? Like, as you guys have been talking about it, people put out a lot of things on social media. So if social media is what you consider your way to express yourself, right? Without always having to think about the conflict or the controversies or anything like that. And we're able to do it in like close knit or closed off groups versus just putting things out to the world type communication, right? So maybe if you think about it that way and you say, yes, this is where I feel that my rights are going to be infringed, my freedoms are going to be infringed, then that's a conversation to have. But I'm not really sure otherwise if we really do consider it, or if we just sit down after the fact, after legislation like this comes through or is discussed and say, oh, well, I didn't think about that, right?
Yeah. That's right. And that's why, we need people who are not connected with government, who are kind of watchdogs to kind of hold up their hands and say, wait a minute, you haven't thought about what can happen here. And I think
most of us speaking don't think about it. We feel where we are in our country, we have the right to say, and we have certain rules we know. Well, you don't have to use too much cussing, or there are certain things like that, as opposed to worrying about, well, yeah, but hold on, you're going to lose your right to do that if this is allowed or this isn't, or you have, you can't, if someone can say this and seemingly get away with it, but then all of a sudden, no, I got kicked off of something. How can they get away with that? I don't think we understand our amount of freedom when it comes to what we say.
That's right. And I think that Rami is quite right, that, you kind of think about it when it's too late. So, when you've lost that, if somebody says, hey, you can't say that, you're going to stop and think, well, why not? Well, just as an example, right now, horrible things are happening in Israel and Palestine. The war, basically, that's going on is absolutely dreadful and frightening. Many people are saying many different things about it. Is there a point where what one person says is going to create a situation where another person calls that hate speech, or where somebody says, you don't get to criticize this group because you belong to the other group, or one group says, you don't understand, and you don't get to say that because you've never been in this situation. These are legitimate arguments. These are things that people need to work out. Do we need to have a government body regulating how we can express these things that are very important to express? Could what one group says about the other group fall afoul of the kind of legislation that we're looking at right now? I don't actually know the answer to that. And since I don't know the answer to that, I'm very worried. I would like to be able to clarify, where the risks are, what are the chills that I should be feeling. And if I live in a country where I have the charter right to freedom of expression, who's going to protect it? So I really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you both about this, and I hope our listeners will think long and hard about where they want their freedom of expression protected.
Absolutely. Excellent. Danielle. And the influences are really something to think about also. So thank you for bringing this up to us, and we'll talk to you on next Monday.
Is next Monday a holiday?
Oh, that's right. Next Monday.
Next. See you next.
Danielle McLaughlin joining us for Know Your Rights.
We'll wrap up our show and tell you what's coming up on Now with Dave Brown and our show for Tuesday after this. Earlier in the show, I was talking about the Kelly and Company podcast. Just a reminder, you can listen to the show in its complete form or the show in segment form. And we also toss in with the complete form, just to entice you a little more, an audio vanity card put together by one of us on the team. Just use your favorite podcatcher and subscribe. At this point in the program, just before we wrap things up and check in to see what's happening tomorrow on Now with Dave Brown, I turn to my co-host and say, any particular segment you'd like to shout out a little bit, just to remind people who might have missed a portion of the show to go back and check it out?
Sure. We were speaking with Christopher Valley, our reporter in Ottawa, and he was previewing this AMI original documentary for us called Is It Time for Online? And that's coming out not this Friday, but next Friday. And honestly, just the conversation and all the different angles we touched on regarding online schooling and online education, what it's like for not just students in Ontario, but really teachers, the government, where the budget plays a role in all this, and of course, Zoom fatigue, and if the actual thing is productive overall, the kind of system that we're using now for online learning. So we really did touch on a lot of different things. Check it out in the podcast for the conversation.
It was a very good cut for timepiece to select, because we had so much there, and of course wanted more to get what Chris was bringing to us as some of the results and things that from the TV piece as we will be able to see down the road. But it was really, really tremendous that way. Talked about the Real Abilities Film Festival starting tomorrow through the 30th. It's virtual, and there's so much involved with it. 15 films. You can also get involved in some of the panel discussions that are there and other events that they have to go along with it. Been there in person, have not been to the virtual event itself, but one of the notes that we should have, and go back and check out the segment, folks, is video description. All the films have video description, something that we know that those at the festival who put it together every year have really been striving for, and fedoras off to those guys. It's been wonderful. Like to welcome in Paul Daniel. Her show Now with Dave Brown. He's one of the producers over there. He's also available, like our show, via podcast. But you can catch them live at 9 a.m. in the morning. Paulie D, welcome back. Happy Monday.
Happy Monday to you too, Kelly. Tomorrow's show, we'll talk to a head of a company trying to make PDS accessible for blind and partially sighted people. Nelson Rego from Cool Blind Tech will talk to us about IBM's newly developed app to help blind and partially sighted users to maintain social distancing in these pandemic times. And Karen McGee and Mark Phoenix join Dave Brown for the weekly news quiz.
Really am interested in that app, because for a lot of people, that is the big stressor, going out now, getting around and not knowing how close am I to the person, especially if you have to, do labs or something, or go wait in line somewhere to pick something up at curbside and you're low vision or blind. So awesome, Paul. Thanks a lot, man.
Thank you, Kelly.
We'll look for that. That's on Now with Dave Brown, their show on AMI at 9 a.m. in the morning. And as mentioned, available via podcast, as well as they have repeats here on the network too. So just stay tuned. That would be helpful, Abram. I mean, I don't know what the app looks like, but we've talked about this and going into shopping places or waiting around to get in line, or just moving around when you want to go out for that walk and don't know someone's there.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we've all hopefully found some kind of workaround at this point, and it's not the opposite where we're like, well, I'm not getting out because I can't, because I'm nervous or frightened.
Yes.
And a lot of us may still have parts of that in us, but hopefully, Kels, we've figured out ways to make things work for ourselves. I personally have started using Aira much more for any kind of outdoor travel. I was telling you about ending up in places just because I want to walk, right? And thinking, where do I go and where am I?
Yeah. Well, like you said, Aira helps. Be My Eyes, Maps, as you mentioned earlier, just tremendous stuff. Anyway, Miss, thanks a lot.